Let's talk about time for just a minute. Time is not the fixed thing that we think of when we think of a clock. There's a subjective component to it that really makes it a lot more interesting. There have been days when time has gone by very, very slowly. And then there's other days where it just whizzes by. And it's not always related to how busy I am. I think it's just related to, I'm not real sure what. I just know that some days it goes by really, really fast, and some days it goes by really, really slow. So that's not something that you can count on being a steady state as far as your experience goes. There's also a time flow that goes through your life. There's at different points in your life, different things are going to have the priority. And things that used to be the priority all of a sudden aren't so much of a priority anymore. There's several points in our lives where we stop and reevaluate what have we accomplished to this point? Where do we want to go from here? What matters? And we find that things that used to matter a whole lot no longer do. And things that didn't really matter so much now do. It's a real interesting phase to go through, and sometimes it takes a year or two to get all the way through it. It's kind of a summing up point where what have we done so far, and what do we want to go? Where do we want to go from here? Happens at various points in our lives, like when we're moving out of teenager, early adult into okay, I'm getting close to 30. And it happens again when we're getting close to 60, like 58, 56, something like that. You go through a whole reevaluation at these points in your life. The next one would occur when you're moving well into old age. And the things that matter in the previous point of time in your life don't matter so much anymore. I used to want to live out in the country and have all kinds of big animals, and that was a pretty consistent desire for most of my life up until here recently, when it's like, well, do I really have the energy to do that anymore? Do I really want to be that far away from the city? The doctors, have to go. I don't have to go very far in the city to get to a grocery store, whereas if I live out in the country, it could be a 30-minute trip just to get to the grocery store. Do I really have that kind of energy? Do I really want the effort that goes with living out in the country? I'm not so sure. And that's kind of a really weird place to be, because I always wanted a lot of land and big animals and open skies and nobody real close by. And now I find myself in quite a different place on that. So that's another form of time. There's nothing like watching your children grow up to make you realize how much time has gone by. Because otherwise, your psychological experience of it isn't necessarily going to be that I'm so much older. You can find yourself feeling and thinking pretty much the same as you did in earlier years, but when you look at your kids and all of a sudden they're in their 20s, oh wow, time has gone by. So, we also have a limited amount of time available to us, and none of us knows exactly how much that is. So, it's important to make good use of the time we have. Now, there's lots of ways of doing that, and sometimes it involves a not doing, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, to actually get something done, you have to set a plan. You have to decide what it is you want to do, what steps are going to be required, what resources are going to be required, and then you're going to have to schedule it in with the priorities to make sure that it all gets done in the time allotted or by the time you say you want to have it done at. And factor in the unexpected that's inevitably going to show up. Something's not going to work, you're going to have something go wrong, things are going to go ways that you didn't expect them to. So you've got to have that built-in time for the unexpected, because you can count on having the unexpected show up in any project. That's one of the things that we learn when we're in school, is getting things done on time and done correctly. That's part of what the whole exercise of going to school is about. And that doesn't stop when we get out of school. It just changes in the nature of our projects. In work, you're going to have projects that you need to get done, and you've got a certain amount of time to get them done in, and you're going to have to schedule out your task and make sure that you get it done. We also need to make sure that we have a schedule for our lives in general, which includes setting aside time for all the things that matter, not just the work, because work alone is not going to sustain you. Play alone is not going to sustain you. Time to develop who you are and how your expression in the world goes is not enough. You've got to have a balance among the different areas of life. You have to have a work-life balance. You have to have the life part of it balanced out into creative expressions of some sort, into family time, into personal time for doing things for you. And it's usually a good idea to have something to develop your spiritual nature or your higher self, or call it just personal evolution. It doesn't have to be religion based, but a lot of people do go that route. So you want to make sure that your life cycle, your life tasks are balanced out, they're scheduled out, especially when you've got a lot going on. That's when it's really important to put down what you've got to get done by when, and budget in time for play. I worked and went to school for quite a while, and if I didn't budget in time, my whole world would derail. So by scheduling in your play time, you can maintain a really strict schedule. If you don't schedule in time for all the different areas of life, you're not going to. And if you are trying to accomplish something, you're going to want to track your actions, or the actions of those that are helping you with the project, and make sure that the work that needs to be done is getting done, and evaluate how productive you or they are being in getting those individual tasks done. One of the things that's going to show up, as I said earlier, is the unexpected. And it's really, really important for us to learn how to flow with the unexpected showing up and derailing what we thought we had planned out. Sometimes those derailings happen so frequently that it's almost like, why am I bothering to plan anything? And sometimes that's a very appropriate way to go with life, is just not have the plan and just flow with whatever shows up. It's not, doesn't always have to be uber scheduled. You don't have to do that. In fact, it's very important to schedule in time for not doing. It's hard to do that in this particular culture, however, because we are so taught that we have to make good use of every moment. Well, sometimes that good use involves not doing. It involves things like meditation, just observing the clouds in the sky, looking at the stars, smelling a flower, just chilling out and doing a whole lot of nothing. All these things are really important to do as well, or not do, as the case may be. And you have to allow time for that. So schedule in some time for not doing, some downtime, some time to just relax, to flow, to let things happen as they will or not, and not have your life so hyper scheduled that you don't have a minute to yourself that you can do with as you please. And as far as all the different tasks that happen in life, it's a good idea, and this is not mine originally, I got this from somebody else. Write down all your to-do list and then prioritize them. Some of those items on there are going to be a do it and do it now. Some of them will be do it later. Some of it will be do never, or do it in the far distant future at some point if you get around to it. So you have all these things listed out, you have them prioritized as to whether you're going to do it or not, and right now. And you need to evaluate, is this really worth my time to do? Because again, time is a precious commodity and we have a limited amount of it. So if it's on the do never, then look at it every so often, and if you decide you want to do it, then it can come back out. But by listing everything out, that takes it out of your consciousness and lets you relax about your to-do list and then come back to it when you know you need to do something. You schedule the things that you want to do now. You schedule the things that you want to schedule for later, and then you schedule time in for your life balance. If you don't do that, then life is just going to be kind of unproductive, and you're not going to get a whole lot accomplished, and some people are perfectly okay with that. Me, I kind of like making a difference in the world, so I have a tendency to schedule things, but not very rigidly, because you never know what's going to show up. Sometimes it's a diversion that's well worth taking. Sometimes those moments of opportunity show up, and you have to have enough flexibility in your schedule to be able to take advantage of those opportunities when they pop up. They don't always repeat. So if you don't act on them when you get that chance, you may never get that chance again. Things like you find something in a store that you really like, you really want, and you decide not to buy it, it may very well not be there when you go back. So when you find those things that show up that are things you really know you want and that you're going to regret if you don't do it, then do it. Have enough flexibility, have enough wiggle room built in so that you can shift things around as needed. Prioritize the rest. When I was working and going to school, I found that if I didn't have enough going, I tended to loaf. I just tended to not accomplish enough because, I only have this much to do. Well, that's a deadly attitude. I tended not to get it done. But when you know that you have a certain amount of things that you have to get done in a specified length of time, and you've got it all scheduled out, you tend to accomplish that on that schedule a lot more rigorously. And then you also schedule in your playtime. You schedule in some time for not doing, and then you make up for any overages that occur along the way. So if you play a little too long, then you have to make up for it by playing a little less later. You just have to maintain that balance. And some of that balance involves downtime, not doing. In our society, we're not taught that not doing is acceptable or even important, but it truly, truly is. Meditation is probably one of the most important things to schedule, but you don't necessarily have to set a whole lot of time aside. And there is such a thing as meditating in motion. You can do that, like meditating in yoga or doing Tai Chi or just about anything, as long as the main component on that is quieting the mind. If you can quiet the mind while moving, great, do it. Just make sure you do it at some point during any given day or week. So time flows sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. It goes by way too fast regardless, and it's a lot more precious than most of us realize. So schedule what you choose to do, and make sure that whatever's important to you happens, and that you have a good balance amongst all the different areas of your life, so that you don't neglect anything too long, because too long becomes a real problem when it goes on too long. So happy creating. Figure out what you want to accomplish, figure out what it's going to take, put it on the schedule, and get after it. You won't regret doing that, and you will make a lot better use of your life than if you don't do that. So, happy creating.